Hello and welcome everyone to the first bracket match of the 2023 Ori Randomizer Doubles Tournament. This is going to be a very exciting match that we've got lined up today. On one side, we have the undefeated team of Bizarre Adventures coming all the way through the Swiss and through up to this stage in the tournament without dropping a single race to anybody. And on the other side, we have Team Illogicalzone, the dynamic duo of Baron and Bob, hoping to play that spoiler role, hoping to play that dark horse to come in and look to advance into the finals in this best of one. To help me on commentary today, I have my good friend Lion Almanar. Would you like to introduce yourself and say hello?
Yeah, hello. It definitely should be an exciting match for sure to see. Bizarre Adventures, as you said, haven't lost a match so far, and they have looked very, very good in this tournament. But we will be able to see if Logical Zone do something about that. They've also, I don't think would be the team that everyone would have thought might be the best team, but they have still looked good in their matches. And so they definitely
Yes.
have a chance, and because I believe they had lost one of their earlier matches and came back and won their last few to be able to make it to finish 3-1 and make it to the semifinal. They were the team that was fourth seed coming out of the Swiss stage, but it's still a very decent chance that they will at least put on a good show, if not win the match. So we'll see as the runners are about to get started just now.
Yeah, as we all know, this is the randomizer where anything can happen. We have certainly seen worse upsets happen before. As our runners get started, we make our relic check and we see that we have no relics in Glades, Misty, or Sorrow. So that no Glades relic is an interesting starting point. Obviously, that first area, we still need to make some checks. We still need to get out of here and make progress into further parts of the game. But the fact that we have no Misty and Sorrow relics is some of those late game areas that are usually relatively dense that runners will like to go to. And also means that we are going to have relics in every single one of the game's dungeons. Which means we're going to be hunting for a lot of shards this seed. So depending on where those end up getting placed down, we could be in for quite a race.
Yeah, for sure. And see, you can find some getting clean water at the start can definitely help with that because it means that there's less pickups that they can just have to leave behind early on. And so we'll see. We'll definitely see the runners checking those first two underwater pickups in Glades. And showing us the thing that Sirius did there in the bottom left. Liftoff went and grabbed that second pickup, but it was just XP, so Sirius decided he wasn't going to grab the pickup, went to get signed first, and then just saves a few seconds by not taking the time to get that, and will be the first one to go into Glades, get these two Keystone pickups, and then the two that are underwater, and see where their next progression will be.
Yeah, it's interesting to note at this point that 3 out of our 4 runners have actually hugged the Rhino and grabbed that XP. None of them have found Keystones yet, and it's looking less and less likely that that Keystone progression is going to be relevant. At this point, I think we do have levels from everyone, so it doesn't really end up mattering too much, but the more pickups we find here, the more likely it is we end up getting sent to Blackroot, and as I say that, we instead find the Swamp Teleporter underwater, giving us a couple more checks we can make before we know for sure where our runners are actually going to have to go to start making progression.
Yeah, and this is one of those starts that can be a bit slow as you move through here. There are a few pickups that you can get over here, but they're a bit slow, but with no skills so far, runners do have to make their way over here, see what it ends up being. It could just be wall jump, and then they go to Blackroot after that, but it could also be two Keystones to go into Glades.
Yeah, and I think if you find wall jump, you at the very least have the decision then to also potentially split up. One runner could choose to make that swamp loop play and kind of go up from where they are now as opposed to sending both players down the same path. So the fact that we have this teleporter, it's a very nice thing, very convenient for our runners. It's going to make things a little bit quicker as we see liftoff in the top left, setting up that blind movement. He's trying his best to play with this cutscene here. Not sure if he managed to grab anything for it. At this point, though, we've got a lot of our runners just in the same spot, very linear seed up to this point for the first few pickups, and really just making a lot of the same checks.
Yeah, and it's really because these are the checks that they can make. Sirius and lifdoff did find the keystone there on the map stone, so if this ends up being a second keystone, then they will have to just go back to Glades afterwards. We'll see. Nope, it is Charge Flame.
Oh, that's so annoying, actually, because Liftoff not having any wall interaction there, you notice, actually had to just die to get back up to where that save was so that he could get out of this area from the Horror Field's health cell. Unless there's wall interaction somewhere else that is accessible, which I don't believe it is, he might just have to turn around and go back and get that Sea Flame at some point. This is gonna kind of an interesting one. Of you have to go down that branch to get it, and then you can't get out once you do.
Yeah, and then that puts this plant, which gives them climb. That Sirius just got. There's one other plant that he can get as well. I want to see Sirius go back and get this keystone because it could potentially be useful. See, whereas on the other side, Baron has gotten the Sea Flame, and we'll be going and checking the plants as well. And there's the second keystone, so that is also potential ability to split one player going into Blacker, one going into Glades, or also going around to Swamp Loop now that we do have Climb.
For sure, there's a couple paths open here as we see Sirius turning around, taking those two keystones, and he's heading towards Glades, opting to just make that large series of checks towards the wall jump tree. There's just so much that you can get so early with it being literally the first area of the game. As we see, it looks like Baron teleporting over to the same direction to make the same play. I'll be curious to see if anyone jumps into Blackroot immediately. There is a relic there, and we know there isn't one in Glades, and I'm guessing with Liftoff making that teleport over, he will be opting to make that play, whereas Bob, I saw him, I believe, go back to the Swamp TP, which means he might be trying to make that Swamp Loop.
Yeah, I think it'll be really interesting to see what if what Liftoff and Bob are, if they like either of them find anything in those areas. I might actually just be going and getting this other keystone as well. It hasn't picked up Climb either, so we'll see where he goes. But
it's certainly not a pleasant experience to try to do that with just Climb, so I can't say I blame anyone for making that decision.
Yeah, and interestingly, Sirius finds Dash on the Sea Flame tree. Baron is going to find that in just a few seconds once he gets up this climb, which Liftoff in Blackroot. It's an interesting play, though, to go all the way through Glades now that there is no Glades Relic, and they do have access to both parts of Swamp and Grotto now through Swamp Loop. But we'll see if there does have anything else in Glades, because a lot of these pickups are very quick to get.
I just want to call out Baron, actually. He's going for the lever here. He gets it there. That is actually the second time he got it. He grabbed onto the wall and slipped off because I think he wasn't confident in him getting it. But with that said, he's got the lever pull. He's going to be finding his dash very quickly, as we now also on Sirius's screen have found 2 Gumon Seal shards. Which is kind of interesting, as we mentioned, there is going to be a relic there. Not obviously any way to get there yet, but the fact that we're finding them so early could be an indication that that might be, relatively early. It'd probably still be closer to mid-game logic based on what we've seen so far. But there's still, the forlorn play is going to be required at some point, and I would love to see someone make that power play early, see what they can find, and just, I love forlorn, what can I say?
Yeah, and definitely somewhere they will need to go. We'll see if they do get either teleporter or third shard. Well, third shard they can't really get in there just yet, but if they go teleporter, see if runners will go straight there. Another thing to note is that Sirius did also find the Grotto TP in Glades Loop, so it's now going to be using that TP to go into Grotto, which is definitely a bit faster than going around Swamp Loop. We'll see if there doesn't end up being anything in Swamp Loop that runners might miss now. But Sirius is going to be going into Grotto. It's definitely more dense area for sure, so definitely makes sense to do this.
Absolutely, especially with just having Climb. It's a lot of stuff you have to strand if you kind of go around that outer Swamp Loop with just wall interaction. You don't really have a great way of getting up to some of those higher pickups, and so you probably, especially when you can get to Grotto, like you said, there's so much density, there's so much pickups here. It's really hard to justify going anywhere else, especially when you know that there's a relic, you've got wall interaction, you've got blue break, there's just so much you can do. And so Sirius opting to make that play, going to be making as many of these checks as quickly as he can, and kind of making this play further down. We'll see at this point if he eventually finds the relic, if he decides to go further, or if he doesn't. And then kind of, how that decision making starts to take into account.
Yeah. As we're focusing mostly on Sirius is doing in Glades and Grotto, lifdoff has completed the main part of Black Root and found absolutely nothing. There was no relic yet so far, and I didn't see any skills or anything else of note. So we'll see. I don't think he got the main room ability cell because he fell down, and so that could definitely be something. I believe Bob left early so that he would be able to get the dash, and then go back to Black Root afterwards. As Sirius also did get a Mega Energy, so maybe we'll be able to a couple extra pickups behind 4 energy doors, but he's probably just gonna go for the Rock Slide for now anyway.
I love that he gets the Mega Energy and just does Rock Slide anyways. You could spend that energy better somewhere else, you've got plays to make here. I love to see it. And I wonder, curious, what door he's gonna end up spending this on. There is this underwater door that Baron's hanging out right next to right now. It looks like he was trying to glitch out, but isn't gonna spend too much time on that trick. As Sirius finds a Horu teleporter in Grotto Vault for his troubles. Not accessible yet. We still need those 2 shards so we can use it, but that's potentially a big find, depending on which direction Team Illogicalzone decides to go on once they start searching for Grotto. That's one of those things that, if you find what you need early, you might end up just leaving, deciding it's not worth making that out-of-the-way check, and maybe potentially missing something valid. So that'll be something to keep an eye on as the race progresses.
Yeah, for sure. Especially if you have both runners go to Grotto at one time, one of them maybe goes left side and right side if the relic ends up being on right side, and then you just end up going at the relic on right side. We'll see. We haven't found the Grotto relic yet. We actually haven't found any of the relics yet so far. So Sirius still has plenty of places to check in Grotto. As Baron is also now coming into Grotto as well. Did find the teleporter in Glades, and so we'll be making these checks behind Sirius now too, as the other runners make their way, have gotten the dash and the Grotto TP as well.
Yeah, despite the seed potentially opening up a little bit and having some opportunity for divergence, ultimately our teams have been opting to make very similar plays to each other just because that's where the items are, right? You go where the checks are, you go where you can get a lot of stuff done really quickly, and ultimately that's led our teams to make a lot of very similar decisions. So we've got people in Grotto, we've got people cleaning up a lot of glades and kind of working steadily through Black Root. No one's actually done anything in Swamp yet, which is, I think, going to be kind of the next main decision point for a lot of our runners, is when they want to stop digging where they are currently and head up there instead and kind of see what's around. Because while this, having dash is always nice, obviously, we don't really have much in the name of verticality right now, and that's going to be one of the things that our teams are looking for to really start to open up the seed.
And see if it does end up being in Swamp. There were also some checks that Sirius did not make in Grotto, mostly on the right side, and that is one of them that Baron just got, which is Wind Restored. That's probably something that Sirius is not going to be going back and getting anytime soon.
Yeah, especially having already made the play down for Grotto Vault, that's one that's very easy to strand. So it looks like Baron is also going to continue on to find that Horu teleporter as well, depending on what we actually get from that. If we find Glide, this could potentially be a very interesting find. That said, with no Sorrow Relic, and with relatively, little utility for just Wind on its own outside of, Sorrow and getting into Sorrow, I don't know whether or not this is going to end up being anything that ends up being too impactful, which is potentially good for you if you're a fan for Bizarre Adventures.
Yeah, for sure. And another thing I do want to note as well is that Liftoff did find a third Gamunsil shard in Swamp Loop. Still not accessible at the moment as they don't have the teleporter or access to left side. As Baron finds the Oru teleporter. Grotto Vault.
Yeah, Forlorn might not be accessible yet, but the fact that we found so many shards early has got to be making our runners question what's in there, and what could possibly be enticing seed gen to put so many of those so early. Maybe it ends up being nothing, but maybe there ends up being a skill there, and so that's where we want to make our play. At some point, our runners do need to get to left side. There are still going to be relics in Valley, like we've been saying, in Forlorn. The question becomes, is there going to be anything else?
Yeah, we'll see. For sure. There's definitely also one Water Vade shard there that Baron did just find in Grotto, and as both Bob and Sirius are making their way through the boulder escape, which neither of the runners that went into Blackroot earlier did. So far nothing has been here, and that means the Blackroot relic will be farther down into lower Blackroot, potentially grenade locked. Still one more pickup here to see, and there's definitely some others that aren't grenade locked, but this is not the relic yet. The relic is in lower Blackroot, so definitely it's another thing to keep in mind.
Yeah, our runners, both without grenade, like you mentioned, and also without any ability cells, which is another thing, especially if you want to be checking areas like the grenade tree. It's going to make a lot of lower Blackroot much easier, so not surprising to see our runners teleporting out of that area, stepping on the teleporter so they can come back later, find what they need, but there's obviously a lot to come before we can really do much for Blackroot. And at this point, there's also stuff like Dash Plant that we haven't been able to check at this point because we don't quite have the air stall necessary for that. And it's one that a lot of people will often forget, and it's one pickup that I like to see important things on, so I can dream, regardless of what our runners might feel about that pickup. At this point now, I think we're seeing a lot of teams start to retrace steps from our others. We've seen a lot of people doing some of the Blades pickup. Liftoff with a very fancy rocket jump to find that Grotto relic. It's not in a very gross location, and so once our teams start to get more verticality, I don't expect that is one that will take people very long to find, but having that knowledge now and also ducking down and finding that win pickup, Liftoff having a very productive trip down into Grotto on his way to get the Horu teleporter. So I love to see that trick. That's a very fun rocket jump to see people do.
Yeah, for sure. It's awesome. And if you look at the top right, just a little while ago, Baron was the first runner to be going into Spirit Caverns, I believe, and did brought the Frankie with him and did a rocket jump, which allowed him to check the energy or the ability cell that's up there. Didn't turn out to be anything, but it was a little strat. Make sure that you don't end up forgetting that one pickup, which definitely can be a bit annoying for sure if you miss it.
I also like Baron. Well, I am entertained by Baron going for rock or Gladezer here. He's got the rock going sideways a little bit there. Not sure how able he's going to be able to kind of get up there. You need a little bit of verticality, and both with this Frankie insisting on jumping into the laser and killing itself, and also with that rock falling over and kind of difficult to keep on its side. This can be a pretty tricky one to do. It looks like he's managed to get it sideways again, though, and is going to try to just push it over and make the play for this Gladezer check. This is content. I'm loving this.
Yeah, I think there's another Frankie. I don't know if you can get the other Frankie and rocket jump off it. I think it might be doable. It would also be pretty difficult as well.
Or you could just, be really good at keeping the rock on its side. Who am I to question Baron?
Yeah, that did end up working though. It was only 30 XP, so not the most important pickup. But there was also an energy cell over in that area, but Sirius found one in the double jump tree as well. So both teams now have a decent amount of energy, and the only player so far that I believe that does not have 4 energy is Liftoff, who's right near a 4 energy door. So that could potentially be a problem. You can see if there doesn't end up being anything pressure fault. Duff does have 3, and so might be able to glitch an energy into the door. We'll see. Looks like he's trying to do that now, and does get it. So probably will still be able to check that without a problem. Still need to get 1 more energy though, because this crystal up here is only worth 2.
There's another 2 energy refill down below, like closer to the charge
Yeah,
frame
yeah,
area.
this
Yeah.
is true. Yes.
Yep. Meanwhile, we see Baron making some checks down into the valley entrance area, and Sirius, finding the Forlorn teleporter, has made the play straight into Forlorn, finding that up in Grove, and is using that to go straight. And like we mentioned, there is a relic here, and if Sirius is thinking the same thing I am, he's seeing those early Gumon Seal shards, even though we don't have all 5 of them yet, which is what would be required to put this in logic. He's seeing this and thinking that it's not unlikely that those other 2 shards are somewhere in logic. His liftoff finds charge jump above the Sea Flame tree. This is suddenly just becoming a very exciting race.
Yeah, definitely. We'll see. Baron is right by there, but I don't know if he's gonna be able to. The Frankie is still there, so probably we'll find that in just a few seconds. And does get it as well. So both teams do have that, both skills. So not too much of an advantage for either team there. As yeah, it's just a thing we're seeing. Sirius finds Bash in Forlorn.
Okay, so that is now for Team Bizarre Adventures. All 3 power skills, Illogical Zone at 2 out of 3. The thing they're missing is going to be that Bash from Forlorn. This is becoming once again a pretty speedy seed. We've got a lot of the relics that we'll need. We're getting a lot of the shards. As Sirius also finding now a second water vein shard. We've already got that horror teleporter. There's not too many more things that our runners are really going to be forced to get. Sirius hits the cutscene right in time to fall to his death. So we'll see a reload from him.
Yeah, it's definitely one of the most annoying pickups to get like an important piece of progression on, because if you don't get anything you need there, you just die and you go back to the start of Forlorn because the game saves at the start. If you get that item and then you die, you don't keep the item, and then you'd have to go all the way back to get it. So this is a bit annoying, but does make it through eventually. As Liftoff has also joined Sirius here in Forlorn. Found the relic, so the relic is in the back of Forlorn. Third chance is now stomp locked. See, that does end up being the case. And without glide, finishing the escape is a bit difficult. And there's another water vein shard though outside of Forlorn.
So it's interesting now, we have those 3 water vein shards. Logically speaking, we don't have any way to actually get up into Ginso itself. I'm seeing Sirius go to the swamp teleporter though. We don't have verticality. Normally you need double jump or some kind of height there, but we have Sea Dash. I'm wondering if we're gonna see some ramps coming out of Sirius here.
Yeah. It doesn't know where the charge jump is, but hasn't picked it up yet. So might be going over in that direction for now. That would definitely make it much easier. And would actually make it so he could get up to the top of Ginso. It does have Bash though, so the second half isn't as big of a problem. But I think C dash, or C jump, it's kind of nice.
Yeah, I may have just forgotten that charge jump existed in the seed for a second, don't mind me. So, as now Bob making that same play, that's now all of our runners finally getting that charge jump, getting 2 out of 3 on the way for grenade jumps as well, which is another thing that I think would be very entertaining to see. We don't yet know that there's going to be any grenade lock relics, but there's always the chance, and now that we've got climb and charge jump, I know what I'm rooting for. That's all I'll say.
And there's a decent chance the Blacker relics can get grenade locked. It's not guaranteed at this point, but there are plenty of grenade locked pickups with Blacker that they haven't found the relic there yet. And there's other areas of grenade lock pickups for sure. Definitely a few in Swamp as well. But there's also still plenty of other things I can get in Swamp too. We'll see. Sirius is now going to be going into Ginso. And with charge jump, this becomes incredibly easy to get through. Yeah, you're normally not meant to have charge jump at this point in the game.
Meanwhile, liftoff right above him, finding that swamp relic just before the keystone door and back of swamp. We had clean water. It wasn't going to be anywhere too gross from a swimming perspective, although that is then another relic that we now know isn't going to be grenade locked. We do find glide for our troubles as well up above to go with our wind. So nice and easy and convenient sorrow access for the relic that isn't there. And I'm sure that will be very useful for our runners. Also, I guess our first Sunstone Shard, putting us at 2 out of 3 pickups required to get into Horu itself.
Yeah, and the thing to notice that glide definitely makes doing the Forlorn escape a lot easier, and see liftoff is going straight back to Forlorn with that. That's because the relic is now known to be either on the escape or stomp locked, and if they finish the escape and it's not on the escape, getting that clue for stomp makes it much easier, especially because at that point they know they will need stomp. So definitely be really nice, and definitely gives them much easier access into the left side. They can go left side now as well, especially with glide and bash to get through valley entry. So see if that's another thing that Shuffle will decide to do pretty soon. But as the thing to note is that Bob finds another Sunstone Shard in the water in Swamp Swim, so that could be important for Illogical Zone if Bizarre Adventures don't actually go back to there.
He actually found both a Water Vein Shard and a Sunstone, 2 Sunstone Shards actually. That is now a Horu Teleporter that is unlocked and working, and I believe for their team's knowledge is also the 3 Ginso Shards that will be required for Ginso access. So different ones than Team Bizarre Adventures found, but I believe that is access nonetheless, as we see Sirius using that access to progress higher and higher into the Ginso tree. Has not yet found the relic. At this point, we're 25 minutes into the seed, only finding 2 relics. It's kind of interesting. Makes you question where the other ones are going to be, but there's still obviously a lot of seed left to play, a lot of places we haven't quite been at so far, and so it'll just be a matter of time. As we expected, as Creative Liftoff is doing that for us.
Yeah, did get the relic on the escape, so there's actually 3 relics now that we do have some knowledge of the runners, but still does make sense to do this escape. There's like a decent chance that Blacker Relic is grenade locked, and so having Stomp is always nice too. So just knowing those locations, and Grenade is in Grove and Stomp is in Valley.
It's interesting, there's not too many pickups left in Grove that our runners haven't checked, so seeing that grenade hint, I'm expecting Liftoff. He's gone to the Swamp Teleport. He's probably going to clean those up, get his grenade jumps real quickly, and then can also use that to start to clean up a lot of those relics. Like you said, Blackroot is a really compelling area to go to once you have grenade and you know that relic is there. So I think we're going to see a bit of cleanup from him, just searching for that ability, as Sirius also finishing up Ginso, making his way to the escape, where at this point he's checked everything else, so we know that the relic is going to be somewhere here, as Bob on Team Illogical Zone making that same play into Ginso, up just behind him, and Baron cleaning up some of those shards, now has all of his dungeon access as well, and is going to be making the play for Horu. Now this is an interesting one.
Yeah, for sure. But with the knowledge that Illogical Zone has, it makes sense they have that access to Haru. That's just one of those areas. There's a relic there. They can check a decent amount of pickups there, so why not go there now? Especially there's a couple here that are very easy to get, as Sirius has found the it's a relic on the second last pickup in the escape. Just before they get the final pickup, and there's a wall jump in Ginso or in Haru. Not the most useful skill, but still nice to have for sure.
Yeah, perhaps with charge jump, not the wall interaction you're looking for, but we already had climb, so you can't be too upset. I really love seeing Sirius grab his first relic 20-30 minutes into the seed. You really love to see it. I see that that point just follows behind Liftoff's footsteps, grabbing that glide, grabbing that relic that he had those callouts for, and is going to be making his way out of this area real quickly now, as Baron cleaning up the easy pickups in Horu, making his way down to the validation XP. Otherwise, a lot of our runners are kind of doing a lot of things we've seen happen on other screens. We've got some Glades, we've got some Ginso going on. Not sure at this point where our runners are going to be thinking to go towards next, as liftoff has up to this point been unsuccessful at finding that grenade.
Yeah, there's still, because he's probably going to be going over towards Progression Vault, or I think this pickup over to the left, if he hasn't, to the teleport if he hasn't gotten it, is also technically in Grove, but instead is probably just going to be going into Valley. This does have Bash, so, and this Sirius actually finds the grenade in Horror Fields. The thing I do want to note there is, they're saying Sirius was leading up pickups in Swamp. Sirius actually did not end up getting that Sunstone shard that Liftoff got on the Swamp Tree. Was right next to it, but didn't end up picking it up, so.
Ooh, that's kind of interesting, unfortunate, maybe lapse either in communication or just memory there. But I guess there are obviously going to be other shards in play. You could always find those ones, as also managing to find now his Grove Relic in Horu Fields. And so we've got more relic progression happening now as we've gotten more and more skills out of the way. I expect that with Liftoff making his plays into left side, and Baron also now finding double jump in Horu, that we're going to be seeing more and more of these start to kind of get wrapped up and found pretty quickly. Our runners have a very strong skill set. Really, the thing that was going to be blocking them from accomplishing anything in the seed was going to be that access, going to be those dungeons and those shards. But at this point, we've now found pretty much everything we need in that respect. And so it's just going to be a matter of how quickly can we make these checks, how quickly can we find those last couple relics, and then obviously do the cleanup from what your teammates picked up while you were searching in other locations.
It's actually interesting to know that there's the Liftoff did find another Gumunsil shard there in Valley. So definitely means that it's interesting because that means that Ash is not the progression they need to get to the left side. So there's probably a teleporter somewhere that they haven't found yet, and would get them to get that. So because we do know that Stomp was also here on the left side in Valley, as Baron for Illogicalzone also has that grenade now, and we'll be searching for the Grove Relic in Horror Fields too.
Meanwhile, Sirius digging into Blackroot, finding his relic right before the grenade tree. Almost grenade jumped out of habit right into the cutscene to get to the tree itself, but managed to stop himself in time, so isn't going to need to watch any lore or skip any lore, as we then see him turn around as well to kind of grab that Forlorn relic. And at this point, I'm curious to see kind of where our runners go to next. I think Liftoff is the one to keep an eye on right now, as he's the one who's going to be making new checks for us in the state of the race, being in Valley. This is stuff that I don't think anyone has made it to yet, whereas everyone else is kind of retracing someone else's steps. So he's the screen to keep an eye on and maybe see if we can spot that Valley relic.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, there it is.
There we go. And I believe with the combination of what Sirius and Liftoff have done, that is now 7 relics, so they just need to get the one in Horu now. That is important to know, and there is a Stomp that Liftoff has found. Isn't something that he is guaranteed to need, but there's definitely also a chance that the Stomp is required for Horu. And so Liftoff now really just needs some Sunstone shards to be able to make it to get into the Horu, into Mount Horu, because they still don't have access. But we do know that there are 2 shards in Swamp, but Liftoff has not found either of those yet.
Yeah, for sure. And at this point, they know that's the only relic that they need, right? And so it's going to be kind of their priority, is doing some of the searching, trying to find those last couple pickups, or those last couple shards that they need. Because now you have Bash and Stomp. Horu is completely accessible to you. There is nothing stopping you whatsoever. And we've seen a couple of Horu checks from Team Illogicalzone in Horu itself as well that don't require Stomp. And the more of those that we find, the more and more likely it becomes that Stomp is actually going to be what locks the Horu relic. And so this might end up becoming an interesting situation where that pickup is going to be the thing that ends up really getting in the way for Team Illogicalzone, depending on where that relic ends up being.
Yeah, sure. Because they do not have Stomp, and they still also haven't gone to Forlorn either, because they did not find the Forlorn TP. And so also to note that Illogicalzone does not have Bash, So that is really something that they would definitely like to have, and that definitely can make this difficult. You see Baron is going for the play for Valley Long Swim, it looks like now, as Liftoff finds another Sunstone Shard at the dash point.
Hey, I mean, I'm not saying I called it, but you know, if that's what it takes, that's what it takes. We need that horror access. There it is. You'll love to see it on dash plan.
And that's definitely something that Liftoff and Sirius will be making them definitely feel a bit better about this, as that was the only thing they really still needed. Liftoff is going to be going and getting this relic here in Blackroot that just needs to go to Ginso afterwards, as Sirius and Valley it still needs to go back and get the Grotto relic, but that one is pretty quick to get. And then we'll be making his way over to Haru as well.
I wonder what's going through Sirius's mind at this point, if he remembers where that Sunstone Shard that he skipped from Liftoff is, or if he knows that he missed it, or kind of, you know, is expecting to come back, or maybe just hope to find another one. Though, at this point, it's looking increasingly like Bizarre Adventures has the tools that they need to finish off this seed. They've got almost all of the knowledge, other than that Horror Relic. They have all of the skills that they need. And meanwhile, Illogicalzone, not even having that Forlorn teleporter to get that bash pickup that has been so fundamental and so important for Bizarre Adventure's run up to this point. And so it's a question now of when they make this check, if they make this check, kind of how long it's going to take them to get into Forlorn, get that bash, and kind of get some of the rest of those checks, because ultimately they haven't been there at all yet, and that's been one of the big things that has let Bizarre Adventures kind of make quick work of this seed.
Yeah, for sure. And thing we're noting is that as Baron didn't do DLS where Bob is now, that did end up being the Valley teleporter, so that's actually the logical progression to get to left side.
Oh,
they're
yes.
going to be taking that, and they do have climb charge, so we'll be able to go and go down into Forlorn. So I assume that's where we'll see Baron go now. We'll find a stomp on the way, likely, and then we'll be his way, and we'll find the bash, and then go into Forlorn. As Sirius now went back, did get the relic on the stomp tree. Realized that probably could have gotten that a bit earlier, but he has it now, so that's really what matters. And will be first one for Bizarre Adventures to make way into Haru as Liftoff finishes up the Ginso escape.
I think it's actually funny looking at Liftoff. He had found that Ginso teleporter from going further on into the grenade tree than Sirius did. So deciding to make that extra play, that extra check, has actually paid off big, as it has stopped him from needing to do any of the entrance to Ginso. He's able to just skip right to the end, get his relic, and get out. And you now see both of Team Bizarre Adventures in Haru. You see 7 out of 8 relics on their team. They know this is what they need, and at this point it's just a question of splitting up the area, finding that relic, and from my perspective, it's a question of, you know, is this going to be, you know, a stomp locked room? At this point, it looks like every team, both teams, have stomp, actually, as Baron now finding it in Valley as well. So everyone knows where it is, but having bash in Haru makes things so much nicer, even if you do have stomp. So I think at this point, this is a definite advantage for Team Bizarre Adventures.
Yeah, for sure. You said, yeah, 7 of 8 relics. What Liftoff has now. Sirius still needs to go back and get the one in Grotto, but that's one's pretty quick, and will take him just like less than a minute to get for sure. So even if he doesn't realize now, he'll see that as soon as he gets the 7th relic in Haru. So it's not too big of a deal for Bizarre Adventures. As both of them have checked now, L4 and R4, nothing there so far, as Sirius is now going to be continuing up. It's actually going to be going all the way up to R1. I like this play, because there's a lot of pickups up at the top, and then you can kind of split the top and down. So Liftoff's going to go towards the bottom rooms. Sirius was going to go toward the top rooms, does end up taking a death, which is going to send him all the way back down to the bottom, as lava does kill you. It's does do a lot of damage. So
Life advice right there, don't step in lava. Video games
yeah,
teaching us important lessons along the way, as now it seems like that death is leading Sirius just to climb back up, as like you said, liftoff, clearing out some of these lower rooms. There are still a couple rooms with a few pickups down here. It's not all just barren wasteland, as Sirius with a nice charge dash right through the lasers there. Who needs to worry about it? We don't care about lasers where we're going. As on the right side at this point, we've, I think, got a little bit of a situation going on where our runners on the right are maybe just trying to figure out where to go next. We've got people looking around further in Black Root. Obviously, they do not yet have that relic, so they'll be searching for things as well. Finding that third Sunstone shard that they don't need is always convenient. But Baron, looking around in Valley here, probably hoping to find something else. I don't know that there's going to be anything of particular value for him out here. But also might just be walking into Forlorn. That's right, they don't actually have that Forlorn teleporter. And so they need to just go there themselves. And so this is going to be that Forlorn play now. This is going to be hopefully when they find that Bash and that Relic in short order. The question is at this point, will it just be too little too late?
yeah, we'll see. It's also liftoff did just find another Sunstone shard in L3, or not Sunstone shard, Gumatsil shard. So that's the last Gumatsil shard.
That's real fun actually.
They gave me 3 early, but then it's actually locked behind both left side and Horu.
That's really good. I love that. We've seen like very few Sunstone shards either this race, so that's relatively late in logic, which is definitely fooled me. So
yeah, we have seen 4 of them because there were 2 that Illogicalzone found in Swamp Swim, which our adventures did get, and there was the other one on Stomp Tree. So 4 Sunstone shards have been found, but yeah, we still haven't found the 5th one, I don't believe. But it's not something that the runners need, and it's not something that they're going to find. So we'll be left questioning forever where the 5th Sunstone shard is. As
mysteries science still can't answer.
see, Bizarre Adventure still doesn't have the relic in, or it could turn out to be in one of the most difficult, more difficult rooms to get to. One of the ones that you don't go in very early. Liftoff is now in L3, as Sirius is going through L2. Liftoff did have a bit of trouble getting over to L3, but is understandable getting through the main room, especially, and even getting over here is definitely not easy, and is currently on low health. So we'll have to place another save and get some more health back.
As it is, actually, he'll be able to bail as Sirius has actually found the relic in L2, right above him, which is, for him, luckily, a much easier room, and either taking the intentional death or the unintentional death, and will just take the convenient escape out to the front of the room again. Either way, that is now knowledge of 8 out of 8 relics in Bizarre Adventures. Sirius just has to go and clean up his Grotto relic, and he will be good to start the final escape.
And so Sirius now sweeping back as Liftoff pushes the block in L2, and then stomps the floor and makes his way to the final escape just behind Sirius.
Meanwhile, on the right, we've got both players making their plays into Forlorn. Baron at this point has found Bash, is about to find the relic, but with both of Team Bizarre Adventures in Horu with just about to be all 8 relics. This is certainly looking like their race to lose, and with this skill set, Sirius literally has a completely full skill wheel. I don't anticipate this being a very difficult final escape for him, as he is showing off grenade jumps all over the place, getting all sorts of fun tech going on, getting that nice cancel with his glide to avoid charge dash into the flame is going to be... Oh no, he gets bopped by the rock there. Lockton still manages to avoid the kill plane, setting up for the final grenade jump, and hits it with ease. That is going to be GG for Sirius. Finishing this seed with a low 40 minutes is a pretty solid time for any of these types of seeds. And Liftoff following not far behind him. Very close finish for both of these runners. On the right side, we've still got some relic cleanup happening for Team Illogicalzone. Still got at least that Horror relic, I believe, is the only one that they have no knowledge of whatsoever now. but with it being in L2, that's not the first room people are typically going to check. So even with some of that work done already, we might have a couple minutes left.
Yeah, for sure. And they, while they do, Illogicalzone do have knowledge of 7 of the 8 relics, they, both members do not have 7 of 8 relics. There's still a bit of cleanup, and Cereberon does not have that. So teleporter will have to continue up here from the bottom again, so as lifdoff does finish as well. GG's for a little less than a minute behind Sirius. So really very good time for this team for sure. We'll say the main thing that really came down to is just that they had bash early. They had found that Forlorn TP and had been able to get to Forlorn, whereas Illogicalzone didn't end up finding that. So
yeah, having that
they just like didn't have bash.
Yeah. Not only bash, but also having that knowledge about like where things like grenade and stuff were so early. That gives you so much speed. So much quicker at that point than your opponent. So I think it really that play in particular, that pickup ended up really having pretty large impact, which obviously you're going to have to go to 4-1 at some point, but you don't necessarily expect it to be kind of that important necessarily. So, of course, congrats and GG's to Team Bizarre Adventures. They are continuing their streak here with what's appearing to be a pretty solid victory overall over Team Illogicalzone. That is going to advance them into the grand finals without dropping a single match the entire time. So they are certainly looking like a force to be reckoned with.
Oh, for sure, definitely. That's a very good performance in this seed, and they've looked very good in the 5 matches they've played now. So we'll see how they end up doing in the grand finals. That their opponent's still to be determined. Will be the winner of Team Storytime versus Birdbath. The match still has not taken place due to some internet issues that happened earlier today. So will be happening next weekend. But so we'll see that then. But Illogicalzone now are going to be continuing looking for the horror relic, as Cereberon is going to be finishing his way through Ginso. He has bash now. It seems to have forgotten that on bash.
It's asking a lot, remembering what skills you have. You've certainly, seen me forgetting what skills are going on here. I can't do it. Can't expect them to do it. But regardless, as you said, making that play for that last bit of knowledge, Bob does now have 7 out of 8 relics. So this horror relic is going to be the last one that he needs, as we see Baron kind of doing a lot of this cleanup. While that search is happening, he has not gotten quite as many, and so is going to be cleaning up like this Ginso relic. He's still got a handful of others to pick up as well. But while that's going on, we have our runners from Team Bizarre Adventures on deck, ready for an interview, so we can go ahead and pull them in and kind of get their thoughts overall. All right, well, Bizarre Adventures, GG, well done on this win. What are you guys feeling right now?
Pretty happy with how that went, actually. I had a couple of dumb deaths near the very end, but other than that, I think I'm very happy with how that turned out.
I'm also pretty curious because that seed made perfect sense and seemed like a breeze until we found a Gumon Seal Shard in Horu, and now nothing makes sense anymore.
That was exactly... I really expected Forlorn to be much earlier in Logic until you found that, and then that just threw me for a loop entirely, so I'm with you in that regard. On the topic of shards... Oh, sorry, you can go.
Yeah, I was going to say, do you want to know what the logical progression was to get to left side?
Sure.
Very much so.
Yeah, there was a Valley TP on VLS.
That feels familiar.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Luckily, you had other ways of getting there that weren't quite as logical. But yeah, no, this is very reminiscent. So, on the topic of some of those shards you were discussing earlier, I kind of want to hear, Sirius, what was going through your mind once you had realized that Horu or that Sunstone shard in the swamp tree area that you had left her and skipped it originally at that point? Was that something you were originally, as soon as you heard about that, planning on going back for? Were you hoping to find something else somewhere else? What's going through your mind as, you start to make that play for Horu?
Well, the Sunstone Shard in Swamp was just a mistake, right? From memory, I didn't remember there was anything on the Storm Tree, so I didn't collect it. Later on, I was missing a Sunstone Shard and checked notes, and we do make notes, and apparently it was on the Storm Tree. That's really all there is to it.
Yeah, for sure, no problem. As a quick update to the state of the race while we're in between questions here, we've got Bob now in Horu with 7 out of 8 relics, making the play for L3 right now. L2 is not far behind, but we know where that relic is, and Baron is also not far behind him, doing just some of this last cleanup on his way to the Black Relic right now. Knows where that is, doesn't have too much more. I believe that is one other, that might be the Grotto Relic that's missing on his tracker, I believe, which isn't a terribly difficult one to get before he is able to join Bob in Horu, and maybe by that point have the relic found already, or if not, be able to help make some of that search. Split up some of those rooms.
Oh no, Bob doesn't have glide. This backtrack is horrible.
Yep. I actually did not know that was a safe spot for him there, although he managed to find it, and at this point, hopefully... Oh no, he had it! He had it. Oh, that feels bad. He's just gonna teleport. You know, I honestly, if I were him, I might just take the teleporter out and leave here.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely one of the most difficult things to do without glide, for sure. Aside from doing all the sorrow without glide, but it's one of those things that it's not something you really expect to ever have to do, and then realize that you don't have glide and all the floors are just gone. But let's actually make it out this time, so very well done. We'll likely be going up to L2 now, and we will find the relic in just a minute for Illogical Zone.
Right. So taking it back to some of your guys' race, I do kind of want to ask about the left side progression here, and at what point you're thinking of actually making that play. Obviously, what you ended up doing was not quite the logical progression of the seed, but so is this something that you're usually doing of how early are you looking to make those logical left side jumps? How early are you looking to kind of make those plays, especially in a seed like this where, a lot of those relics Misty and Sorrow just are nowhere to be found?
Yeah, I think normally we try to split up whenever we can, and that often involves at least one person going to the left side early. But this seed, as you said, there were basically no relics to be found on the left side except for the Valley relic and the Forlorn relic, but we found that via the TP, so that doesn't really count. So I think in this seed it was a little later, but then after we found the Stompkins, which could have been nice for the for Horu, given that the Horu relic could very well have been stomp locked, and we were still missing the relic. That's when I was like, okay, might as well go over there. I have Bash. It's not too terribly difficult to get there, and yeah, it ended up paying off.
There's also a priority thing going on. I think left side can be very nice, but this seed threw a lot of dungeon access at us, and dungeons in general are a high priority because we're under the impression that seed gen with shards likes to place a bunch of shards and then send you into a dungeon and then place a powerful skill there. That seems to happen a lot. For example, there was a Bash in Forlorn. Apparently it wasn't as early as we thought, but there was a Bash in Forlorn. It still worked, alright. And yeah, it was just Forlorn, then it was Ginso, and that's just higher priority than left side, I think.
Yeah, for sure. Definitely makes sense. While we've been talking, Team Illogical Zone has finished their relic hunt on both sides. Bob has actually completely finished his escape in this time and has gotten that final grenade jump, and so we'll be finishing up in a matter of moments. Baron is not far behind him, setting up some grenade jumps of his own with an almost full skill wheel. Not quite full like Sirius had, but I don't anticipate this will be a particularly difficult escape for anyone, as we'll be seeing both teams now wrapping up very shortly. Baron making his way down through the fish, mashing his way up accidentally triggers the kill trigger here, is now maybe going to be a little bit more tricky to set up the final range up. See if he attempts for it. If he just goes out, nope. Because at this point, he knows the state of the race. He's going to be holding right as well, and this will be GG's for him as well in just about a bit under a minute. So that will just about bring this race to a conclusion. Now that everyone's done, we'll see if Team Illogicalzone will also want to jump in and give some of their thoughts on the seed as well, now that they have some of that knowledge.
Yeah, for sure. Definitely still, especially with not finding that early forlorn access and not having a way to get that bash early, still definitely a very good time for them. Hopefully, interesting, like the logical left side progression, which is what they ended up following. So good, still a good time for them for sure, even though they do not come out as the victors in this race.
Yeah, for your guys' info, I think that forlorn teleporter was really the big thing that made the difference for you two in this race. Ultimately, the others didn't find that one, found Bash much later and got a lot of that information pretty significantly after you did. And so I think that find really ended up being a big difference maker in this race.
Yeah, I can totally understand that. That's like the one pickup that everything hinges on.
Well, glad we checked that.
Yeah.
Very much glad we did.
For sure, as that will now be GG's for everyone involved. All of our times have been finalized. Bizarre Adventures going up to this point fully undefeated in the tournament. So I guess while we're waiting for our others to join in, going into now the grand finals for you two, how are you feeling? And, I guess, do you have thoughts on which team you would like to be facing in that last matchup?
Well, I
Playing
think it's
Muffin is
going.
always fun.
I think it's going to be fun either way. But we have played Team Storytime once already, and we haven't played against Kuz Birdbath. So, but as Sirius said, playing against Muffin is always fun. So I think no matter who wins the other semifinal, it's going to be a great time and a lot of fun to follow.
For sure. I know that both of those teams on the other side of this bracket are very skilled in their own right. And having watched the matchup last week between you two and Team Storytime, can definitely say that will be a fun one to watch. And from what I know, watching Hal and Clean play, they're always fun players as well. So very much looking forward to however things shake out. Obviously, unfortunately, with that match being unable to be played today, we won't know for a few more days who you'll be playing against. But with any luck, things will go smoothly in the future, and things will be able to progress not too far out.
Sure, we'll see if Illogicalzone do end up joining us as well, or if not, we will just wrapping up in a minute.
Oh, I believe I do see them joining in now, so I think we can go ahead and pull them in and get some of their thoughts on the seed overall. So with that said, Illogicalzone, GG's. This was a tricky seed for you guys, but I think you did well overall. I guess, how are you feeling kind of coming out of this race now and knowing what seed Gen had in store for you?
You can go first, Bob.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
We're happy we made it to top 4. This seed was not nice to me at the start, and I think starting with a 3-minute early deaths I did decently well. But yeah, this was not the kind of seed we were hoping for if we wanted to have a chance of beating Team Bizarre Adventurers.
Yeah, definitely a unique start, and then it felt like no matter where you went, there was something to get, so that just made the faster team just better at finding things. And I mean, obviously, they even found things we missed.
Yeah, I think the big one of those actually was finding a forlorn teleporter gave them access to Bash and some of that information about, like, stomp grenade locations on the forlorn escape significantly quicker. And so I think that ended up being one of the big difference makers in this seed. That said, I'm curious to hear some of your guys' strategy as you're playing a seed like this, where you have lots of dungeon requirements, not, lots of missing relics on left side, kind of sense it invert maybe some of what you're normally expecting to run into. So when you're playing a seed like this, how are you guys trying to do routing, and what are you hoping to see?
Our biggest game plan is split up as much as possible, and if you find something that will open up more pickups while you're splitting up, then you can converge on that.
Yeah, I can point to a specific moment in the seed. I had just finished Left Side Grotto, and Bob was ready to go to Spirit Caverns, but only had a few keystones. So I instead took that role, and we sort of swapped positions because I had enough to go all the way up, and I was rewarded with Charge Jump eventually through that. Because I was able to go a little further, it was just a better idea.
Yeah, for sure. Just one more question. Kind of just like what your thoughts, I guess, when you so you had found that 4 HP when you find the like you go and you eventually find the left side progression at VLS. I guess kind of like what's your like thoughts, I guess, on like if you thought you'd like miss something, or like kind of thoughts on like the seed and that like kind of annoying for left side progression.
Our thoughts for that, I think our thoughts in general were like, we found Valley TP on VLS, we found Grenade in Horror Fields. It was like, if this is the only way to get to left side is VLS, then we have a shot. Clearly it wasn't.
Yeah, it's
But
definitely
Logically, it was the only way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
that was definitely the hope. Is that if it was locked to that specific progression, then there was an odds play that we could have either gained back some time or had a lead off of that. But there's always a way to break a seed.
Unfortunately, yep. All right. Well, with that said, this unfortunately does bring an end to the tournament for you guys. So, do you have any closing thoughts for the tournament as a whole?
I thought it was a lot of fun. I haven't touched Ori in like 6 years before this tournament, so it was nice coming back and seeing the new faces and how stupidly good some of these people are. And yeah, thank you for all the hard work that went into it.
Yeah, really. Shout outs to everybody in the community that worked on it, that played in it. Some of the behind the scenes stuff that doesn't even get spotted. It's all really beautiful, and I really appreciate what everyone does.
For sure. Always good to hear. With that said, I believe that is going to do it for the show today. So in the future, look forward to the other semifinal match of the bracket coming up this Friday. Again, that will be between Team Storytime and Team Koo's Birdbath. Again, two very skilled teams that I'm sure are going to be able to make a very entertaining race. But with that said, that's it for today. So I'd like to take a moment to thank everyone who helped make this show possible. That includes Lion with me on comms, our wonderful truckers, Infinite and Ernest, and our restreamer Turtle for helping make this entire thing possible. So thanks again to everyone. Thanks everyone in the audience for watching, and I hope everyone has a good rest of their weekend and a fun time playing Ori.